on earth.
In the heart of apartheid South Africa, love was a crime. And yet, from that forbidden act of love, a child was born. A boy whose very existence challenged the laws of his country, and whose laughter would one day challenge the world. Before the fame, before the global stages and the roaring applause, there was chaos, fear, and a mother's unbreakable courage. Trevor Noah wasn't just born into poverty. He was born into a system designed to erase him. Every step outside his door was a risk. Every glance from authority a reminder that he was never meant to exist. And yet, that same boy would rise from the dusty streets of Johannesburg to become one of the most influential storytellers of his generation. A voice that could make the world laugh, while making it think. How does someone born illegal become the world's conscience wrapped in humor? This is the story of Trevor Noah, the man who turned pain into purpose and comedy into revolution. Trevor Noah was born on February 20th, 1984, in Johannesburg, South Africa, a world divided by walls, colors, and fear. His mother, Patricia Nombuyiselo Noah, was a fierce and independent Xhosa woman. His father, Robert Noah, was a white man from Switzerland. Their love, under apartheid law, was illegal, and their son's birth, quite literally, was a crime. Growing up, Trevor lived between two worlds that were never meant to meet. His mother raised him in secret, sometimes pretending to be his nanny when white policemen passed by. There were days when they couldn't walk together in public, and nights when sirens echoed like warnings that love itself was forbidden. But Patricia was relentless. She taught Trevor to find power in knowledge, to laugh when others would cry, and to dream even when the world told him not to. She brought him to church 3 times every Sunday, one for the black congregation, one for the mixed, one for the white, because she wanted her son to see that God belonged to everyone, not just those in power. Amid the poverty and fear, Trevor discovered his first defense mechanism: humor. He realized that making people laugh gave him control, a way to survive chaos with wit instead of anger. His childhood was filled with stolen moments of joy, homemade toys, whispered jokes, and his mother's unshakable belief that one day he would break the cycle. In a country built on separation, Trevor Noah was the living proof that unity and rebellion could exist in one heartbeat. His childhood wasn't just about survival. It was the foundation of the storyteller he would become. When apartheid finally ended, South Africa was reborn, and so was Trevor's world. Yet freedom didn't mean easy. Poverty still haunted the streets of Soweto, and opportunity was rare. While others chased stability, Trevor chased laughter. He didn't plan to be a comedian. It was survival that made him one. His first performances weren't in theaters or television studios. They were on street corners, buses, and schoolyards, where he learned that humor could disarm even the angriest soul. People didn't always understand his jokes, but they felt his truth. His comedy wasn't just funny. It was a mirror, reflecting a nation trying to heal. He began performing at small clubs around Johannesburg, often for no pay, just the thrill of holding an audience. His style was different: sharp, multilingual, fearless. He switched between English, Xhosa, Zulu, and Afrikaans effortlessly, connecting people who'd once been divided by language and color. Television soon came calling. A few guest spots on local sitcoms led to his first major break, hosting a South African radio show and later his own late-night talk show. For the first time, Trevor Noah was seen not as the mixed-race kid, but as a voice that could make sense of the chaos. Still, his rise wasn't without resistance. Some said he was too white for black audiences, too black for white ones. But Trevor turned that paradox into power. He transformed alienation into perspective, learning that between two worlds, he could speak to them both. By the time international comedians visited South Africa, Trevor was already the one they whispered about, the young man with wit sharper than politics and stories deeper than pain. His first break wasn't just a career moment. It was the discovery of his true weapon: truth told through laughter. By the late 2000s, Trevor Noah had become one of South Africa's brightest young voices, a storyteller who could make people laugh at the very wounds that once tore them apart. His comedy specials, raw and fearless, dissected race, class, and identity in a way that was both hilarious and healing. But destiny was calling far beyond Johannesburg. In 2011, Trevor took a leap of faith, leaving his home country for the United States, with little more than a suitcase, a dream, and his mother's words echoing in his heart. "You were not born to hide." The move wasn't easy. In a country that already had 1,000 comedians, Trevor was an outsider. His accent was different, his experiences foreign. But what he had was perspective. His humor wasn't built on cultural familiarity. It was built on humanity. He started appearing on American late-night shows, surprising audiences with sharp insights wrapped in humility. Then came The Daily Show. When Jon Stewart, one of the most respected satirists in the world, chose Trevor as his successor in 2015, it shocked everyone. How could a relatively unknown South African replace a comedy legend? The backlash was immediate. Critics questioned his experience, his background, even his right to the seat. But Trevor did what he always did. He turned doubt into fuel. Slowly, his calm intelligence and fearless honesty began to shine. Through global crises, elections, and pandemics, Trevor Noah became more than a comedian. He became a conscience with a punchline. His monologues weren't just jokes. They were lessons in empathy, power, and perspective. Each episode of The Daily Show proved that laughter could be both entertainment and education, a bridge between pain and progress. And as the world laughed with him, it also began to listen. From the segregated streets of Soweto to the studios of New York City, Trevor Noah had done the impossible. He didn't just find his voice, he made it echo across the world. With fame came the storm. The world that once embraced Trevor Noah's brilliance soon turned its gaze to scrutinize him. In 2015, as he prepared to take over The Daily Show, old tweets resurfaced, jokes from years earlier, written before the world knew his name. Some called them insensitive, others unforgivable. Overnight, the man celebrated for bridging divides was accused of crossing the line. Headlines flared. Social media demanded his cancellation. For a moment, Trevor found himself standing where so many others had, at the intersection of fame and judgment. But instead of lashing out, he listened. He admitted his growth, his flaws, and his humanity. "Comedy," he said later, "isn't about being right. It's about learning where the line is, and what happens when you cross it." Yet the public controversy wasn't the only shadow in his life. Behind the laughter, he carried deeper scars, ones the spotlight couldn't see. His mother, Patricia, had survived being shot by her abusive ex-husband, a moment that forever changed Trevor's understanding of pain and resilience. He spoke of it rarely, but when he did, it wasn't to gain sympathy. It was to show that even the strongest voices come from broken places. The loss, the fear, the trauma, they didn't silence him, they shaped him. At the height of his career, Trevor Noah faced a test that had nothing to do with punchlines. It was about authenticity. Could he remain true to his purpose when the world questioned his every word? He did. Not by defending himself loudly, but by letting his work, empathy, and growth speak louder than any scandal. Out of every wound, Trevor Noah carved a story, and from every mistake, he built a lesson. Instead of hiding behind the comfort of fame, he chose reflection. He didn't fight his critics. He evolved beyond them. His redemption wasn't about apology tours or staged reinventions. It was about honesty. In 2016, he released his memoir, Born a Crime, a raw, emotional account of his childhood under apartheid and the unbreakable bond with his mother. The book became a global phenomenon, translated into dozens of languages and praised for its humor, depth, and truth. Readers laughed, cried, and finally understood the boy behind the smile. Trevor didn't just reclaim his narrative, he expanded it. Through The Daily Show, his stand-up tours and interviews, he used his platform to amplify empathy. He made the world laugh about its pain, not to forget it, but to face it together. His comedy evolved too. The jokes were sharper, the silences more meaningful. Each story carried a quiet courage, the kind that comes from forgiveness, not defiance. When asked how he survived public backlash and private trauma, Trevor said simply, "I learned that you can't control what breaks you, only what you build from the pieces." Awards followed. Emmys, global tours, sold-out arenas. But what mattered most wasn't the applause. It was the connection. The boy who once had to hide his face now stood under the brightest lights in the world and smiled. In Rising Again, Trevor Noah proved that redemption isn't the absence of failure. It's the decision to rise. With grace, humor, and heart. Trevor Noah's legacy reaches far beyond laughter. He redefined what it means to be a comedian, turning humor into a lens through which the world could see itself more clearly. In a time of division, he became a translator of humanity, bridging cultures, languages, and experiences through empathy and wit. On The Daily Show, he gave voice to the voiceless. He spoke of injustice not with rage, but with understanding. His questions cut deep, not to wound but to awaken. And in doing so, he changed what political satire could be. Not just a mirror of society, but a guide toward its better version. For young comedians across Africa, Trevor became proof that you didn't need to sound American to be heard. You just needed to speak your truth. He opened doors for a generation that once believed the world only listened to certain accents, certain faces. His influence also went beyond comedy. He became a global ambassador for education and equality, supporting literacy programs and youth empowerment. Wherever he went, Trevor carried South Africa with him. Its beauty, its pain, its lessons. As peers and politicians alike praised his insight, one thing became clear. Trevor Noah wasn't just a comedian. He was a connector, a storyteller who turned laughter into language and truth into art. And though his journey started in silence, it ended in something louder than fame. Impact. When Trevor Noah stepped down from The Daily Show in 2022, the world expected another big career move. But instead, he chose something far more radical. Silence. After 7 years of dissecting politics, culture, and chaos every night, he turned inward. He began traveling again, not as a celebrity, but as a curious observer, much like the boy who once sat on his mother's lap, asking why the world worked the way it did. He spoke openly about finding peace beyond the noise. "For the first time in my life," he said, "I'm not chasing the next thing. I'm learning to just be." Trevor's reflection was not about retirement, but renewal. He explored his African roots more deeply, reconnecting with his grandmother's stories and his mother's faith. He began hosting international events, delivering speeches about empathy and understanding, carrying humor as his constant companion, not his armor. No longer bound to a desk or a daily broadcast, Trevor found freedom in authenticity. He discovered that fame was fleeting, but purpose, that was eternal. He started writing again, performing stand-up shows that felt more like conversations than performances. The themes were softer, wiser: forgiveness, humanity, balance. Trevor Noah had once turned pain into power. Now he was learning to turn power into peace. And in his quiet laughter, you could hear something new. The sound of a man who no longer needed to prove anything, only to live truthfully. Under the spotlight, a single figure stands. No scripts, no desk, no barriers. Just Trevor Noah, smiling softly, as if he's finally found peace in the very world that once rejected him. He was born into a law that said he shouldn't exist. Yet he grew into a man whose words reached every corner of the globe. He faced hatred with humor, injustice with intellect, and pain with purpose. Trevor's story is not about fame, it's about freedom. Freedom to speak, to heal, to laugh, and to belong. He taught us that comedy isn't just about jokes, it's about courage. The courage to confront darkness with light. And maybe that's what makes his journey unforgettable. That through every heartbreak, every headline, every scar, he chose empathy over anger and laughter over silence. From a boy born a crime to a man who helped the world understand itself, Trevor Noah reminds us that even in the harshest realities, hope can still sound like laughter. Because when you can laugh, he once said, you haven't given up. Subscribe for more stories of stars who turned pain into power. Tuan bo noin fan nai hian jat. Tuan faisto tualo 600 words. Chuan toi luang pandra artara foot. Juan hao cho format. Stars and scandals. Ban cho muan toi tong hop lai than. Ban Hoan Chin One Phil Lion Much Plus Jig Swat Tieuje. Hashtag Va Mota SEO Cho Video. Trevor Noah, From Pain to Purpose. The story of a boy born a crime Kong,